Hey everyone, welcome to episode 100. Yay! Oh my gosh, I'm so excited and so thrilled to have gotten to this. Thank you all so much for your support. I'm just so incredibly grateful for all of you. So excited to be doing this as episode 100. This is the longest episode that I've had on the podcast, and there was just so much incredible knowledge and value in the episode. So I really hope that a lot of people who are not married yet get to listen to this and get to learn. Special shout out to Tanya, who was a guest on this podcast in episodes 7, 33, and 35. Thank you so much, Tanya, for connecting me with Pastor Keith. This is such an amazing episode that brought so much value and just so much depth to everything to do with marriage and premarital counseling. So thank you so much. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Unpacking Love. I'm so excited to be bringing such an important topic to the podcast today. We are going to be hearing about premarital counseling. And I know that this is such a big topic because, growing up in the church or even like with friends who are engaged or getting ready to get married, this comes up a lot. And so I was like, it would be so amazing if we can have a guest come speak to us about premarital counseling. So I'm so excited to have Pastor Keith in the house today. Hi, Pastor Keith. How's it going?
Hi, Michelle. I'm so excited to be here on Unpacking Love.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is really an honor for me and for you to take your time out of your day to come and speak to us. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much. I think to start off the episode, let's start with an intro. So if you could let us in on, a little bit about who you are and what you've been doing, that would be great.
Okay, great. I might have to just begin by thanking you for having these thought-provoking discussions, especially in the area of love. I am always so happy to be a part of something so important. I'm so excited to be here. I'll say that again. My name is Pastor Keith. I pastor a church in Harare, Zimbabwe. That is in Southern Africa. That's where we are located physically. I I am a broadcaster. I worked for 14 years as a news anchor and a journalist, and I am an author. I am an editor. I am an inspirational speaker. And as I've pastored the church for a long time, I felt the pull to really help couples unpack, if I could borrow from the name of your podcast, unpack
Yeah.
love. And love really needs to be unpacked. So many blind spots, so many things that people should know. Love is the area is really an area where a lot of people say, "If I had known." So I'm so happy to be here talking about it.
Wow. Thank you so much. And in the area of premarital counseling, what is the story there?
I've been in premarital counseling for 10 years, and I've seen it all. I've seen it all. I've I've seen people who we've gone through counseling with, and amazing to see their family grow and see like the beauty of life. But I've also seen people who didn't really regard it very much, and I saw them also facing consequences. So this is a very vital subject.
Wow. And I mean, 10 years is a lot of experience. And to your point, you've seen a lot of counseling, and it's beautiful
Yeah,
that you've seen the growth for some, and sad that, for some of the marriages, it didn't work out for those people. So that's
yeah.
sad to hear. But we really appreciate just having you on here to share your experience with us and to share your thoughts on this important topic. So having said that, could we start off by talking about what premarital counseling is?
Premarital counseling. Let me describe it in this way. Have you ever seen or come across, those romantic stories where someone says, I knew I loved you before I met you, those kind of
Yes.
things where love has got this timeless thing where somebody can recognize someone and know that they love the person even if they're just meeting them. And that's the quality that love has. And premarital counseling is actually a therapy. It is a therapy session. But the difference with this session is that while other therapies happen in response to something, premarital counseling comes first as a preparation for something, because love is timeless. We start with the future, and then we start fixing the future as we go into the present. You understand? Unlike other forms of therapy where we begin in the past, something happened to you and we want to solve it. With premarital counseling is nothing has happened to you yet and we want to solve it. That's the mentality that we have. So premarital counseling is a therapy. It's a therapy which couples go through or undertake as they take the big step premarital, the big step into marriage. It assists partners in improving a lot of things, from communication skills, setting realistic expectations, developing conflict resolutions, and of course, I'm preempting things that we are going to talk about even more. But it's a therapy that helps couples prepare for the mentality of marriage. I think that's the best way I can describe it. To have the right frame of mind.
I love that.
Yeah. So as couples take the next step in their relationship, they learn to resolve issues in their relationship that they don't know are issues yet before they commit to marriage. And it also helps them set relationship goals.
Okay, okay. This was a really, really good intro to what premarital counseling is. And I know you're going to go into some of the topics that are covered, but I just really love how you contrasted like the therapy that probably a lot of people know about, right? Where it's like, okay, you're talking about
Yeah.
things that have happened, whereas for this, it's talking about things that are coming in the future. And I think it's also incredible that for you, Pastor Keith, being married and all, you've experienced your own things in marriage. And so you're speaking about marriage to people who are about to get married, right? Is you sharing years of even personal experience, and then of course the pastoring and the counseling. So that's just really, really incredible. And I think what's so interesting too about what you said is how when people are planning to get married, they have no idea what's going to happen in marriage, right? That, I think dating and marriage would be two completely different worlds. So to have a counselor or a pastor speak to you about some issues that you might not even have thought about discussing is just incredible and a good way to prepare for the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love
Absolutely.
that.
It's a really awesome thing. And it's amazing how many people do not recognize it as a therapy. Um, but it actually is. You've actually seen a therapist if you go through premarital counseling. And it could be premarital counseling is so powerful that it could be the difference between marriage and divorce. It could change the course of destiny for your child. If you have a child and you haven't gone through premarital counseling, there are decisions you make that may end up bringing your child in a certain space and create a never ending cycle just because there's information you missed.
Wow.
and
Wow.
and that's how impactful it is.
That is so profound. And I know, different churches or different counselors would handle all these things differently. But in your experience, about how many sessions are we talking about if a couple is coming to you specifically about premarital counseling? Is it a one and done 2 hour session, or is it multiple sessions of varying lengths?
We have 16 sessions that we can reduce to 8 sessions. That's the lowest we can go. But there are 8 topics we cover in premarital counseling, and these 8 topics are in 2 week sessions. Are 2 week sessions. We meet once a week, so that's 16 weeks. And in those 16 weeks, 4 months before the wedding or before the marriage, we really hit hard, explore different issues and things like that.
Interesting.
I don't believe in a one and done. When people do that one and done, it's more like they want to tick a box. And I've experienced this a lot of times. Couples come for premarital counseling because you're supposed to have premarital counseling. So they do it to tick off a box, or they do it to because people say they should do it. But it's when they begin the journey, that's when they realize, oh no, this is really, really important because
Mm,
it prepares people for what they are stepping into. You must realize that there are so many voices that are speaking on what a marriage should look like. And we can even the term marriage for a lot of people, the culture is shifting to people wanting more, partnerships, and they say that they just want to. There's a word for it. It's called cohabit, but people just want to live together and all those things. And all these things are voices that are saying it should look like this way. And somebody
mm,
else comes and says, no, it should look like this way. And we can even go deeper and be more even and talk about more controversial subjects about a woman is supposed to be this way, or a man is supposed to be this way, or what is a man, famous discussion, what is a man and what is a woman. All those things, these are different opinions, different voices speaking into the reality we want to step into. So premarital counseling becomes so vital because we really need to have the correct mindset of
mm.
what we're getting into. And isn't it strange that the biggest voice or the loudest voice in terms of relationships and marriage is actually Hollywood, and yet it has the most divorces? So we are receiving advice from a broken system. And they actually say that if you are late for the Hollywood wedding, keep driving, you'll be in time for the divorce. That's
Oh,
what people
wow.
say. And they say that, of course, to emphasize how bad things can get.
Mm.
But you need to listen to the right voices.
Wow. Wow. This was so profound. I think you mentioned so many great gems in there. And it's just incredible, even what you said about how you usually plan to have 16 sessions, but the least number that you would, I guess, dwindle it down to would be 8 sessions. So there's just so much knowledge that's being shared there. And I'm just curious, even before we get into, the topics that are covered, have there been times where a couple comes and they start going through premarital counseling and then they realize that it's not going to work in their opinion? Like they feel like we're actually not compatible in certain areas.
Yeah, oh, that has happened before. And then we have to, when that happens, I actually disagree with the fact that people can say they are not compatible if they've come this far. But what we begin to teach them is that you've just recognized how different you are. But marriage is laying down yourself. And how far can you lay down yourself to accommodate this? So I get them thinking, they go, they scratch their head, they think, because there is nothing called incompatibility. There is just something called the decision to say, I won't go away from self to this level.
Wow. Which in itself marriage would be selflessness, right?
If marriage is selflessness, yes. So those are the things. So we've had those sessions where people begin to doubt whether you're the one for me, or things like that. We've had those sessions, but in those sessions, the question is, are you really incompatible or you can't break out of self. And if somebody finds out that this is too much, I can't break out of self to this level, then we identify a divorce prone area. That's how we function.
Oh, wow. So you identify a divorce prone area and then kind of focus on that?
Focus on that and see how deep we go. And there are some times where you realize that everybody's so stuck in their ways. Both of them are stuck in their ways. They won't do this, this person won't do this. And those are the results we give them. Are you willing to work through this or not? And if it's
Mm,
not, then we never recommend that people do not marry, or we just bring out the issues and let them make a choice. Because one of the worst things to ever do if you are in any form of therapy is to make decisions for people. So we just make what was hidden crystal clear. Then they can make decisions on their own.
that's incredible. And I think even for some people who may have considered premarital counseling and didn't go, I wonder if for some of them it was the fear that, like, what if we go and we're basically told it's not going to work for you too. So I love that you've just clarified that you're just there to work through issues with them and to reveal things, and then they get to make the ultimate decision on their own. That's very powerful.
Decisions are always personal. We were not there when you met. Whatever attracted you to each other, we don't even know it. But we respect you as the owners of your. We're just doing an audit. And the auditors of a company never recommend the police to come and arrest somebody, or they just give the report to the CEO and say, this is where you're leaking money, this is where your company is inefficient, um, find a way to deal with it. So that's what premarital counseling is. A lot of people have this fear, you know, they've got this fear that, what if they say you guys are not meant to be, or things like that. We have no such authority to say that, but we do
Mm.
have authority to cause you to look into yourself and bring out what is inside.
I absolutely love that. And I think having said that, we can go into some of the topics that would be covered in the sessions. I know you mentioned that there are 8 topics. So could you shed some light on those topics, what they are, and what their significance is?
Okay, great. So I'll share one, and then if you want to have a little discussion there, we keep going.
Sounds good.
The first one, and I usually like to begin with this, is expectation in marriage. Just expectations. And here's where a lot of people face blind spots because they have a picture. Everybody has a picture in their mind on what they think it should be. And most of the times, that picture is warped. So they step into marriage and they say, okay, I just want someone to knock me off my feet, rose petals, and run in the bath, and and when we begin to discuss these expectations, a lot of things begin to be revealed, and people begin to realize a lot of issues. So when you begin premarital counseling, one of the first things you and your partner will discuss is the expectations, right? And everybody's so excited because it's the first one. So we ask them, what do you expect of each other? What do you expect from the marriage? Are they lofty or are they reasonable? So we begin to talk about if you and your partner have different expectations for the marriage, you know that it will be difficult to make it work, right? And it really depends on how different they are. And you need to be on the same page when it comes to expectations. Eventually, you know what happens? No
Mm.
one really gets 100% of what they wanted in a relationship. The law is you only get 80%, and the 20 you have to let go
Mm.
when you're dealing with a person. So here's the thing. I've got a new definition for the word disappointment. Disappointment is the gap between expectation and reality.
Wow.
That's what disappointment is. So I had a big one that I faced with my wife. I'm gonna go personal here and get in trouble later. But I had a difficult one. So you see, my dad is a very late sleeper by nature. He's a very, very late sleeper. My dad can sleep at maybe like 2 a.m. And there's a psychology to that I did not know. The reason is my dad, he works, he worked in a factory, and then they manufacture these air conditioners, and it's a very noisy place. So how he dealt with all that noise is he liked that silence of the night. When everybody goes to sleep and it's like 10 p.m., he likes to just sit on the couch, watch TV, and relax a bit.
Mm.
So that's the nature that came to me. That's the nature I got. I'm a very, very late sleeper. Like today, I actually slept at 2 a.m. and woke up at like 5. you know. So on the other hand, her dad, um, rest in peace to him. He worked he was, he had a good office, he was management, and he'd always make it home by 5, by sunset. He's home, he's helping with the homework, um, and everything. So when we got married, her expectation was my husband is going to come, and when he comes, we sit down, we have family dinner and everything. But on the other hand, my expectation was, ooh, after work, I can have like, a little bit of family time. When it's time to go to sleep, I'm just chilled. I want to watch something. And so we had a problem there when we got married, a big one. It sounds like a very small thing, but imagine having that discussion daily.
Mm.
And it's always like, why are you staying up? And my response is always like, why are we going to sleep this early? And when we go to sleep, she falls asleep like very quickly. She's asleep. And then I'm sitting in the bed thinking like, what am I doing here? You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that was a huge area of difference in our lives. So much so that we actually haven't quite solved it over 10 years into marriage.
That is so funny.
What we found out is we began to understand our basic motivations. And so I now know that there are days where we have to go to sleep very early. And she now knows there are days where she has to stay up with me, even though she falls asleep like an hour on the couch. But that's just a little example of expectation versus reality. But there are bigger things. There are
Mm.
bigger things like, people expected we'd have a home by this time, and it hasn't happened. Or, so it's all these influences, sometimes negative, sometimes positive, they affect a relationship. And people, when they are dating, they always gloss over their partner's expectations. Like, you expect us to sleep early. Oh, in my mind, I just say, I'll change that when we got married because it's not realistic. But it's real for them.
Mm.
And then when they find out after they get married that you can't really change that fast and that quick, conflict. The definition of disappointment is the gap between expectation and reality.
Wow.
And it's normally felt in the first 5 years of marriage.
I think it's just incredible how you brought this up because, tying it to what you said earlier about how the biggest voice about marriage or about love is what we watch in Hollywood movies, right? The rom-coms
Yeah.
or the romantic movies. And I'm just thinking, yeah, a lot of that does shape our expectations of what marriage would look like. Or to your point,
Yeah.
what you grew up seeing, right? Or like, and just
Yeah.
realizing
Yeah.
that when two people come together in marriage, you're coming from two very different walks of life, and you're bound to have differences. And so it's just incredible
Absolutely.
that you do start with, hey, let's talk about expectations, something that people would actually think is a light topic, only to realize that, you know what, actually some of the expectations that you have might fall in the, kind of quoting the stats, it said might fall in the 20% piece, right? And not in the 80% of what you'll get from this person.
Right.
And I think even talking about the 80/20, just being able to recognize that 80% is a really good deal, right? It's not like you've
Really
settled.
good.
It's not like you've settled if you're
Yeah.
getting 80% and not the 100% that should have wanted. But there is that selflessness that you're speaking about, of letting go of the 20 and being happy with the 80.
And I can elaborate on that. When people cheat or they get out on their marriages, they are chasing, they get attracted by the 20. And that 20 doesn't have the 80. And they rush to everything that is opposite their partner. Cheating tickles that unrealistic expectation that was disappointed.
Wow.
And people rush into it. And I'm probably just going off on a tangent now because I really want to say something. It's probably off topic, but it's an interesting thing to throw in there. I've counseled also a lot of people that had cheating partners,
Mm,
and I've also talked to people who cheated, and I realized the most shocking thing and the biggest lie is that someone cheated on you because of who you are or because of what you didn't do. I actually found out that the primary motivation why people cheat is they want to explore another timeline in their life. It is it is about them. So never should a person blame themselves and say my partner cheated because I did this. It's always about them and their selfish journey.
wow.
We'll get back to that because that's not that's not our topic of discussion. But this is what happens: expectation and reality. For women, sometimes, and I'm being very general here,
Mm,
it's the romantic movies. They build an expectation. I've also seen that for men, generally, men watch pornography. We're being very general.
hmm.
It builds to a reality that's not real. I want that phrase. I want to play with those words. A reality that's not real because it's in your mind.
Mm,
So they watch all these sexual things, and I've come across Christians who consume that content and feel like they are being dis- disappointed sexually, but they are probably watching, things that have been edited and everything. We're not going to even talk about the morality of it. We're just talking about the 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 impracticality of watching something
hmm.
and trying to impose it on your partner.
Right. Yeah. I love what you said. I think I also love, I know you're being, general about it, but I just love how you brought up that, yeah, we were focusing on this romantic movie aspect and how it builds those expectations, but then even also talking about other content that other people might be consuming, like pornography, and then how that builds an unrealistic reality, right? To your point.
Yeah,
Wow. That's incredible.
yeah, yeah. So let's move to the second topic. The second topic is the possibility of children, raising a family. You want to have kids? How many kids? How are we going to raise them? That's a very, very interesting one because people also gloss over that one because you are bringing new lives to the world. And for a woman, it tends to hit them faster when they get married, particularly when they get pregnant. They know that my life now revolves around this little human being. But for men, it hits them slower. I remember when when my wife gave birth to our first child. On the day she gave birth, I knew she had changed.
Mm.
Like it wasn't about me anymore. And men struggle with that. When that happens, men enter into a little depression when they realize that their wife, they are no longer the center of their wife's world, and soon enough they follow up, they catch up. And so it's very important to to talk about what expectations people should have, or people have for children when considering the possibility of children. It's important to think about what they want for their future family. And so the questions are: do you want to have kids? How many? What kind of parenting style do you want to use? Are you comfortable with changing diapers? It's a really small thing.
Mm.
Dealing with sicknesses and putting in late nights. Can I give you? I today I'm just snitching on my marriage. Let me just go ahead and say it. There is one thing that I struggled with, Michelle.
Mm.
It's a weird thing to say, but I struggled with sickness because I don't know how it happened, but when I grew up, my dad was never sick. My mom was never sick. I was never sick. My siblings were never sick.
Mm.
Like ever. Probably had the occasional cold. And I know that when I was born, like when I was maybe preschool, I had challenges with some skin eczema things, but sickness was not something I ever experienced until maybe I was 16 or something when I caught chicken pox. So for my wife now, she had a little brother. She has a little brother, and when he was young, he had uh, asthmatic conditions. So she was used to having trips to the doctor often. So when my children would fall sick, it took me long to want to take me to the doctor. I'd just say they're okay, they're kids, they'll be strong. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying?
I
And my
see.
wife would always be saying, "Let's go to the doctor." And it was very costly and really, really causing a cyclone in my pocket. And I was always telling her, "No, let's we go to the doctor too much," you know. So that was actually an area of conflict between me and my wife. And sometimes the doctor would just recommend like very basic stuff that we should have figured out on our own. But it's those are things to talk about. Then we talk about the late nights. Ooh, when a baby starts crying. I know that in the United States, you guys do well. You sort of train your kids what time to sleep and everything. But in my part of the world, kids can cry anytime. You actually have an 8 a.m. at work, and you're still trying to put your kid to sleep at 5 a.m. That kind of thing. So kids bring a dynamic. And then there are people who tell you that they don't want to have kids. Not very common in my part of the world,
Mm.
but sometimes. Then there are issues of fertility. Someone can't have kids. All those are important things to look at. But I've seen that kids are the most abstract thing in marriage because people forget they're dealing with actual human beings. So they have this picture that, my kid's going to be like this, like that. And most of the images you have are wrong. So people are usually not ready in the area of kids. And that's the area that tests you the most.
Wow.
everybody believes they're going to have, this kid who's going to be smart, who's going to be beautiful, but sometimes you can have a kid that struggles. And sometimes you can have a kid who you struggle to discipline. And sometimes you can have a kid who's a slow developer. And all those things are blind spots that couples never think about.
Wow.
And usually when we talk about it, even in premarital counseling, it's a topic that everybody just wants to be quick to agree to, but I know that there are landmines in that place.
Yeah. And I think when you were saying this, I was thinking about, even conversations I've had with some friends. So I have a friend of mine who's dating someone and they have very different views on spanking kids, right? Like one of them
Yeah,
is like absolutely not because I was not spanked and I don't believe in it. And the other one is like, I will absolutely spank them because I was spanked and that's the way to raise kids. And so just even talking about, how their differences in
yeah,
thoughts, right, about raising kids, parental styles, and all of that is just so, so interesting. And I was even thinking about with my parents, like one thing about those two, they will always agree in terms of if I was to ask them something when I was younger, right? If one of them
yes.
said no, the other one would say no. There was never a no yes situation, right? So they were
Oh,
always like
right.
presenting a united front. And you
Yeah.
just knew like if I went to ask one would be like, have you asked the other one? Because then as a kid, you're trying to like, go to the good cop first.
Swindle is the word.
Exactly. Okay, if we want to
Good
call it
cop.
swindling, but to like, you identify who you think could be a good cop. And again, that varies by situation, right? And you're like, let me go to good cop. Or you get to good cop, and good cop is like, I see what you're trying to do. Go and ask bad cop. And bad cop is gonna say no. So it's just, yeah, it's very interesting talking about that. And I think even with what you're saying about, the realization that you're bringing life into the world and kind of talking about those expectations even earlier on, right? Because I think
Yeah,
sometimes too, someone could feel like the other person is not pulling their weight. I mean, when you talk about, say, in the US, where people might not have the money to have someone stay at home, like a stay at home nanny, right, for the kids,
yeah,
you might run into
yeah,
issues where if someone was brought up a certain way. So let's say, for example, someone grew up in Zimbabwe, and I mean, this is not even saying all people grew up in Zimbabwe think this way,
yeah,
but I'm saying like
yeah,
as an example, if someone grew up in Zimbabwe where, like for them, they always had a maid, right? And maybe they were a guy, and growing up, the guys in their family never did any chores. You could run into an
right.
issue where, like, if you're now married to someone like that, like in their mind, their expectation is like, kind of going back to gender roles, that the woman is the one who would do this. But it's a whole different environment now because back home, like
Absolutely.
in Zimbabwe, you could have a helper who helps you with the kids, right? So then
Absolutely.
it's much harder when you don't have anyone helping you and then just expecting your partner maybe to be the one who takes care of the household and the kids while you go about your business.
That's hard. That's hard. And these things are interpreted as love.
Mm,
That's where you have to really be careful, because maybe on Saturdays, because my dad was a very big let's go shopping as a family dad. So I always knew every Saturday morning, no matter what, we go shopping.
mm,
And my dad created this atmosphere when we were shopping. This this we are united, we are a family kind of thing. Probably he also didn't have that when he grew up, so he fixed that on us. And then on the other hand, my wife is a very Saturday is a day to, you know, just do all the spring cleaning, just make sure all the laundry is in place. And where I'm coming from, Saturday is party time. We need to go see this relative and that relative. And it would always hit me like, why are we working on a Saturday? We don't do that on a Saturday, bro code. It's a Saturday. We don't go like that, you know. And sometimes when I would want to go out with the kids, because this is my display of affection for a family, and she would say no, I would feel like she's attacking our family deeper. than she actually is. To her, it's time to just get the work done. To
Mm.
me, is why have you stolen an opportunity for unity? You know, and the thing is, this is happening on such a deep subconscious level that you can argue about facts on the surface, not knowing you are actually arguing about deep psychological things.
Wow.
So you could argue like, but you could do this tomorrow. And then she says, but tomorrow is church. No, I can't do that. When I come from church, we need to rest. Then like, but why can't you do it later? I can't do it later because later I'll be tired. It's Saturday. And why can't we go shopping tomorrow? My response is, it's too rushed. But we're talking on the surface. We
Mm.
don't know the deeper meaning behind what we are doing.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to be talking about kids, by the way. I don't know how we got here.
I know, but I think that was a key thing to bring up, that, these things that, a person could interpret as a personal attack might actually not just be a personal attack. It's just because this is how this person grew up. It's not like they're out to get you. They're just operating the way that, say in your examples that you're saying, that their family used to operate, how they grew up, right? It's like what they're just trying to do. And both people are trying to do the same thing. And it's not a
Yeah.
personal attack on anyone. It's just, again, those differences between people. I love the examples. Keep the examples coming, because, it really it solidifies the picture and the points here.
Number 3, finances. Now that is a hot topic. Finances cover a lot of things. They cover someone's spending style. Do you know, Michelle, you've got a spending style?
Yes, and it's problematic. I even recognize that it's problematic.
So you really will need to come for premarital counseling, and we'll sit
Yes.
you down and everything. So finances are one of the most important topics that you will ever discuss in premarital counseling. And the leading reason why marriages end in divorce, if not discussed, this issue will cause a huge explosion in a marriage. I mean, after all, if you can't manage your money well, it's really going to be difficult for you to live happily ever after.
Hmm.
And one of the things you need to do is to sit down and create a budget. Figure out how much money you both make each month and then allocate it accordingly. Make sure that you have money set aside for bills, groceries, and emergencies. If not, or if you're not comfortable with your current financial situation, it actually might be a good idea for couples to sit down and map out a way in which they can increase their finances or save at least for a rainy day. So we also need to talk about debt. Oh, we need to talk about that. How
Mm.
people handle debt. Um, in your part of the world, credit cards. Yeah. And people can have maxed out credit cards, and the other one has got good credit, the kind of stuff. And do you carry over a balance? How much debt do you feel comfortable with? These are all vital pre-marriage counseling questions that need to be answered before people tie the knot. And many people come to relationships with debt. That's a big one. And people have debts from weddings. That's
Mm.
another big one. And student loans for your part of the world, you know.
Hmm.
So yeah, this one's got issues. I think I'm about to snitch on my marriage again. So it was a while before my wife found a job when we got married. And what happened is that when we got married, I was the one with the job. And before that, I could do everything that I wanted with my money. I could buy clothes. I could just do what I wanted. The hard part is when I got married. I'm in the marriage. Then all of a sudden, I have to hand my whole paycheck to her. And she has to divide we're having a discussion, and I'm watching all my beautiful money being split, do this to that, to that, to that, to that, and I don't have money for my little luxuries. And that was a very strong turning point for my marriage. It was very difficult to relinquish the power I had over the money I earned. And a lot of people face that. And there are many ways that couples deal with this. When couples are together, they can have like joint accounts. But I've seen that people with joint accounts sometimes they tend to struggle because they feel like they don't have freedom to do stuff with their money. Maybe your friend comes from out of town and says, "Hey, can we hang out? Can we have some coffee?" And you don't have anything because you put everything in your, you know. So the way to deal with money is to be strict and allow flexibility. You know, so have the flexibility that allows people people, to be humans, to have dignity money, but at the
Dignity
same
money.
time, yeah, it's called dignity money. You need money to be, dignified, for the little things that you need,
Mm.
and occasionally the bigger thing that you need. You need to have a little surplus where you can do that without damaging your 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 joint account. And the area where people keep a lot of secrets from each other is the area of finance, because sometimes there are issues where, in-laws, one household is facing more challenges than the other. Let's say if we sit down and we say we are giving 1,000 to your family and 1,000 to my family, and then what will you do if one family experiences lots of challenges and the other one, they don't actually need the 1,000? Should we
Mm.
continue distributing fairly, or should we give these a little bit more? And normally what couples tend to do is they just sort of start giving money to their own family in a backhanded way, you know, and that creates more explosions and more challenges there. And what feels like wasting to one person is quality time for the other person. So finances are a big one. When it comes to handling debt, debt is very bad. Debt can destroy a marriage. Debt debt makes you slaves, and debt can depress you. Even if a person is not asking for their money, they can depress you. The fact that you owe your every dollar to somebody can depress your marriage. So, oh, finances is the big thing. Finances finances are so crucial that people sign prenups,
Mm.
and we could go down that rabbit hole, um, because there's a lot of stuff there. So it's a very touchy area. So people should disclose in premarital counseling. Is there any financial thing that your spouse should know of that they don't know of? Say it now, right? And then we start talking about what are needs and what are wants, what are necessities. How can we dream together in the area of finance? How can we increase our income? How can we be disciplined in the area of money? Very, very crucial topics to discuss. Money is a big one.
Yeah. Oh wow. Thank you for going into that. I think you brought up some big buzzwords for sure, like debt, differences in spending style, One that I also really liked was the dignity money. And I think it was really good also that you kind of hit on some of those things like, okay, joint accounts, for some people it might work. For some people, they might feel like they're now losing themselves completely, right? And that's where the
Yeah.
dignity money would come in. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much to unpack there. And of course, for everyone who's listening, this is like consider it a high level overview of what premarital counseling is. So don't expect Pastor Keith here to now go into every single thing. Because I know when Pastor Keith and I were messaging before this episode, he was like, we could spend days talking about premarital counseling. So
Yeah.
this is just high level, right? This is
Yeah.
just to let
Yeah.
people know what topics are out there and what's discussed in premarital counseling, so that if you're at that stage in life where you're like, oh, I'm ready to take the next step, you could also go for premarital counseling and hear more in the sessions that they have. This is a really, really good one. And I think I really also appreciate how you said finances are the leading cause of divorce, right? And just talk
Yeah.
about the secrets that come with money, and how it's important to talk about those things. And it is hard because, when you're still single or when you're dating, your money is your money, right? And then now when you're married, that picture changes and it's no longer just like my money, your money, and it now becomes our money. So really appreciate you going into that.
Absolutely. I love one thing you said. Okay, if I could just maybe just throw one more thing in there.
Of course.
You mentioned when you are single, your money is your money, right? And I had a boss that I worked for who was single. He was in his 50s and he was single. And one of the things that I noticed was, after we finished the night shift, he would come in the morning, but remember, we work the night shift, so we're still there. We're just finishing work when he arrives in the morning. And then it would be so cold, and we'd say something like, can we drink some tea like in your office? And then he'd say, go ahead. And when we went into the office, into his office, that is, we would drink tea. But when he came, he would say things like, why, who spilled tea over there? Who moved my books? Who did this? And I began to realize, that's when it hit me that singleness sometimes gives the illusion that you can control life. Because as for me, my iPhone, my son, who is only a year, just threw down my iPhone just like that,
Oh
and it
no.
cracked. And my daughter knocked over the TV, and my favorite mug was broken, and I couldn't find my spectacles the other day, and every time I try to wear socks I can't find the other one, because you relinquish control.
Mm,
You find out that there's very little you can control, and it's a form of growth to experience that. So running back to finances, it's like that. On Sunday, you know, I was getting ready to preach, and all of a sudden, like in the morning when we were just dressing up, I had finished preparing the message that I believe that God had for His people, and suddenly, my son, my 1 year old, just starts vomiting, and we had to look what's wrong with everything. So he seemed stable enough to go to church. When we were mid church, my older son, his eyes just started getting puffy, and afterward we had to rush, and that's money for doctors, that's visiting the pharmacist. There is no control, you know.
mm,
And I also don't want you to confuse that lack of control for chaos. It isn't. It's knowing that you have very little power over what happens with finances, but it also opens a door for you to have very little power over the level of blessings that come to you.
wow. That was so profound. That was so profound. And honestly, thank you for going into that. And I took down what you said about how you said that, singleness creates an illusion that you can control life. And that is true, right? Because I guess when you now have more people in your life, whether it's like a spouse or kids, then
Yeah,
you start to see that, you know what, you're actually not in control as much as you thought you were in control. So thank you for sharing that one.
Absolutely. So one of the most important topics that you will discuss in premarital counseling is your extended family, which is number 4. So it's all about how much they will be involved in your marriage. So we have some certain important questions that we ask. And one of them is, do you want your parents to move in with you after you get married? And of course, everybody says no, but sometimes things are circumstantial. Um, Things happen that result in that. And we try to ask how each spouse will feel if that is to happen. The responses we get for this sometimes are very, very poor response. Everybody believes it won't happen to me, you know, to stay with my parent or parents. They don't really picture that happening. And then the next question would be like, how often do you want your parents to visit? And whatever answer people give at that time may not be how much they'll visit. Nobody can figure out the future, but people change as they go. So one person may be very close to their parent and want them to visit a lot, and then the others may say, "No, I don't want my parents to visit a lot." But over time, that perspective changes, and then we move to your partner's family. How much do you want the brothers, the sisters, to visit? How often? And how involved will they be in your life? Like, what role do they play? And how often do you want to see them? This is no longer just them visiting or just generally meeting. And then we talk about holidays and special occasions like birthdays. How often will you interact? Now, these are all important questions that need to be answered before a person walks down the aisle. And you also need to discuss how you handle disagreements with your extended family because they happen a lot.
Mm.
If one of your families is particularly intrusive, because families differ, some will be a little bit more intrusive than the other family. So, would you have a set limit on how often they're allowed to visit? Will you cut them off completely if they cross the line? And setting healthy boundaries, that kind of thing, with extended families is very critical. So those are some of the issues that definitely come into play. And there's a lot to say here because parenting style, where you come from, it really contributes a lot in the marriage. And I've known a couple, they were married for roughly about 8 years. And the husband was always complaining that his wife and her mom had that buddy relationship. They were like very, very close. That thing that, the mom comes over, stays 3 weeks, and during that time, the wife is kind of emotionally detached, um, to such an extent that he felt he's like he's the visitor. And it happened
Mm.
lots of times. And also what happened is um, whenever they interacted with the mom, nothing was really wrong, but the wife would be super nice to him, very, very, very nice to him 2 weeks before the mom comes, which he could tell she was about to ask if her mom can come over by how nice she treated him. So on this particular day, he says that is the day that broke the marriage. He says she was super nice and everything. She cooked him, the best meal. And they had a very romantic night and everything. And then she asked, "Can my mom come over?" And he said no. And it was so bad. They had an argument, and finally, forcefully, the mom came. But he said he was different. He didn't want to talk very much and everything. And he blamed the collapse of his marriage a year later on that incident. So stuff like that does happen. And people do not know just how often it happens. There are a lot of disagreements that happen in terms of family and you know what? It usually begins on the wedding. You see, have you ever watched those wedding movies where it's maybe did you watch Jumping the Broom? That's a good
Yes.
movie to watch before the wedding. It's because um I believe weddings are really important because what they do is they play the role of separating you from your family. You begin to see certain traits that were cool when you were growing up, but become uncool in the marriage. You begin to see manipulations um, from each family and everything, and it prepares you for the realization that you are taking this journey on your own. So it's very, very important. So many places we could take that because I can even tell you of how how a good upbringing can become toxic in a marriage.
Oh,
Do you know
wow.
that that's really really possible? Because when a person grows up with a very good upbringing, we're talking about a functional family where a father and a mother are involved, and uh, beyond that, everybody's playing their part in the family. Not to say, broken families are not functional families and everything like that, but I'm trying to show you that when a person grows up with that level of functionality, they tend to want to bring that functionality in a new marriage. And it is that very same functionality that is introduced too soon in a marriage. Their family had to grow into it. And now the person takes, the husband or the wife, takes everything and tries to implement it all at once in a new family, and it doesn't work out. That dynamics like people who tell their sisters everything or their brothers everything, and others are secretive. They don't want to. So they get offended. Why are you tell? Why does your brother know so much about our lives? Why does your sister know so much? So all that stuff plays a role, and we can go to celebrating birthdays. One family may say, "Oh, it's your birthday again. What are we going to do? We're coming over to your house, or you come over to our house." And yet the spouse may feel like we need time alone,
Mm.
you know. So those are dynamics you have to figure out, dynamics you have to work out. And I want to tell you something about this point number 4. Point number 4, you can't figure out the future. You can't figure out whether you're going to be living with a parent or whether what you're going to do about these dates. So we discuss point number 4, not to really come up with solutions, but to develop the mindset that your family shouldn't be as influential. Like we need to sow that seed to tell you that you are actually now a family. most of the stuff we're going to talk about, like my parents are going to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to give a distance on this, though that is just stuff you can say, but we know that 90% of that stuff you're not going to do. But the mindset is important. The mindset is really important. That's point number 4.
This was so incredible. And I think from everything that you were saying, right, just even the realization that when people get married, it's not just the two people coming together, but their families that are also involved, right? Like each individual is coming with their family and, whatever relationships and dynamics they had there. And now they're starting something with their spouse. And it's like, okay, how much involvement are we going to have from family? And even establishing those boundaries and having hard conversations, which I feel like it can be really tough also depending on your cultural background. I feel like some cultures, it's much easier for them to just have direct conversations, right? Whereas other cultures, they might find it harder maybe to have hard conversations with their family because they fear that they might be disrespectful. But I think what you're bringing up here is the fact that these are conversations that have to happen despite not knowing what the future holds. But on
Yeah,
your end
yeah,
as the pastor, the counselor, sowing a seed that, hey, you're now starting a new family unit, and these are some of the things that need to be discussed. Because I guess at the end of the day, too, it's two people coming together, and
right.
not to say that, people have to change their relationships completely with their family where they came from, but you also now have to consider your spouse and even things like holidays, right? Maybe every Christmas you spent it with your family before you were married. And now it's like, okay, you're going to be married. What is the Christmas situation going to be? Is it going to be alternating families? Is it going to be all families coming together? Like, what is the situation there? That's incredible.
And you know what, Michelle? Do you know why people fight so much at weddings? People fight so much at weddings because they're different, right? They come from different families, their expectations are different. And you know what? You and your spouse are actually different too. The difference between you and your spouse and your spouse's relatives and your relatives is that you love each other so much you are willing to change. But when families come together, they're not willing to change because they don't love the other family. So you are bonded by love which overcomes your differences. But the families you bring into the picture are not bonded by love and they are ready for conflict.
Wow.
So what makes you grow, just the two of you, makes people drift apart when they are family coming together. And families look at each other like aliens, like why would they do this? Or why is this so important to them? Or have you noticed that these people they're like this and the other people will like, oh, have you noticed that they're like this? Those are differences. Those differences, you have those differences with your spouse. The only issue and the only solution that you have is you just lay down your weapons and choose to love beyond, which they can't do.
Wow.
So it's a real issue in marriage, handling in-laws. But you
Mm.
have to get ready to for conversations like uh, when they say that, were they talking about me? You know, that's your brother or your sister or your mom or your dad asking, were they talking about me when they said that? Because they insulted me. Yeah, get ready for conversations like that.
Mm,
Also,
mm.
there are eventualities in life, like situations where a sibling passes on and their children, and you have to take care of one of their children or all of their children, and the children maybe uh, bring trouble in your home. Things like that happen, and then when it comes to maybe taking care of a sick parent, and your spouse begins to complain that, yeah, we're taking care of, you were living with them, but they're sick, but I feel like sometimes they're whiny, you know,
Mm.
and the other person feels like, oh no, this is my dad. I can't do that. I have to serve. I have to run around for my dad. So those family dynamics, or somebody just comes and says, "Can I borrow the car?" And it's a car that you both bought, and one of you feels like your brother's a reckless driver. You get it. So
Mm. Mm-hmm.
those are those are in-law dynamics. So we have to deal with the dynamics of need, where, remember, people face different things. Um, I actually read a very interesting story. This I read this about. So there's a guy. He was married. The husband is working hard. The wife is also there. She's also going to work. So everything was pretty cool, and he paid for everything. He made sure that everything was okay in the home because he knew his wife made very little. He just let the wife spend her money, her little money, the best way she could. Until one day he was going through emails and he bumped into his wife's paycheck. And he was shocked to find that his wife earned three times what he earned.
Oh, wow.
And and the wife was pretending to be broke, you know. And so he decided that he wasn't going to ask her, but he was going to sort of trace what happened with the money or what happens with the money. So he did his investigation and he started checking her phone. Well, we're not going into the ethics of that or everything. I'm just telling you what happened. So in the end, he found out that his wife was building her brother a home, you know, and had actually built a house actually. Um, and was sending lots of money to her parents. And he was so hurt because his mom was having to survive on what was left of his salary. And when he confronted his wife, the wife said, "But my brother is broken, he's going through a hard phase. So yes, I built the house and I bought him a car so that he can Uber or something like that." So think about it. How do we handle different needs? Do we sit down and equally distribute and say, I don't know what happens to you, but whatever happens to you must be covered by this? Or do we say, based on need, let's concentrate on helping this house, this household? So those are tough conversations to make. And sometimes spouses end up lying to each other and backhandedly giving money to their family. And we need to unpack that because if they do it in a backhanded way, that means they think their partner is not listening. If they were to come with a problem, or they think that their partner has got certain perspectives on the family and that they don't want to go into, or they feel like their partner doesn't give too much, doesn't like my people, so let me just do it alone. And all that stuff causes problems upon problems upon problems. And they have to be an issue of discussion. And I won't even tell you the right way to say, okay, split the money equally or deal with the needs as they come. There is no right way. The right way is what you discuss.
Mm.
and choose to. Then there's black tax. It's a very common phrase in my part of the world. Black tax is and I have to say this, and I know that it's a potentially touchy subject when it includes race and things like that, but this is a full discussion. We have to touch even on those issues. Where in my part of the world, when your parents take you to school, take you through an education, you have to turn around and take care of them. And that one is tricky because maybe one household is more demanding than the other. And the first household feels like, hey, we've taken you to school, we used all the money that we had, and you take care of our bills. And the other spouse may not have people who say stuff like that, or who expect that. And those are conversations
Mm.
to have. Maybe one comes up with, so my brother needs money. Oh, what does your brother need money for? Well, he wants to start a business. He saw this opportunity. He needs these couple of thousands, and he said he will pay us back when the time is right. Do you think your brother can pay us back? Yeah, yeah, yeah. He can pay us back. I mean, he's an honest guy and everything. And then the person says, I don't think so, because he didn't give money back to us when we lent him this money and everything. And then somebody's offended. What are you saying about my brother? And and when the temperature heats up, your brother has got a drinking problem and a womanizing problem. And I'm sorry, we can take our savings and give to him. I mean, he can get money from anybody else. Well, you never liked my brother. You never liked my family. You see how that goes?
Right. It quickly escalates.
Yeah, because family is a touchy subject.
Wow. Oh, I love this. And to your point, right, with family, we could go on and on about that one. So we can now move on to number 5. So, what is the fifth topic that you share in these counseling sessions?
All right, this one's a hot one. Or maybe I'm saying that about every point. I
I
don't know.
know, right? Like, I know every time you introduce it, you're like, this is a hot one. I guess all eights are hot.
Oh, very hot. But let's go deep into this one. Intimacy. Well, you can agree with me that this one's a hard one.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so intimacy mm, is is the one of the most important topics that you'll discuss in premarital counseling. I mean, after all, if you can't be intimate with your partner, your marriage will have like additional challenges. Like, um, if that area isn't really fixed, it will start popping or creating new challenges. So there are a few things that you need to keep in mind when it comes to intimacy. First and foremost, you need to be just comfortable with your partner. So this may sound weird, like how can I not be comfortable with your partner? But we've faced this. We've had discussions where people are actually just uncomfortable, with their partner, and and there needs to be a lot of honesty with each other about needs, sexual needs. Um, if a person wants sex several times a week, there needs to be discussions about that. People's sexual intimacy also changes over time and also based on, you know, what chapter they are at in life. But sometimes it's not a change for the worse. Sometimes it's a change for the better. People want physical intimacy more, and people just go through different stages. So it's important to be open and honest about your needs so that you can come to a compromise
find a resolution so that each person sort of lands in a good place. But also remember 80-20. So there's a lot to go into detail about. There is a notion that I want to rectify. And for me, this was a game changer because it isn't really about intimacy, what I want to talk about, but it affects intimacy. I found out that married people, especially recently married people, make the mistake of concentrating all their effort on intimacy, on making it better. And when they do that, they still reach a place of frustration. So, I mean, when people get married, obviously they are very curious about that side of things. But people don't realize that marriage is actually friendship. And people can say that, "Oh, yeah, we know that," but I found out they don't really know that what marriage is it is a friendship that God added spices to.
Oh, wow.
So in reality, you have this companion, you have this person who you are experiencing everything about your life with. So they are your friend. Fix the friendship. Like put all your effort in being friends. I'm sure you've had friends, Michelle, over time. And do you know that there's a friendship code? Like when you fight, you don't say this about each other. And even when you make each other mad, you don't hurt each other in a certain way. That's friendship, right? But
Right.
you will notice that when married people fight, they fight dirty and they fight destructive because they're not friends. So because they are not friends, they are romantic partners having a sexual journey. They don't know how to handle disagreements and they don't know how to treat each other well. There are people who have awesome sex but don't treat each other well outside that. So sex or sexual intimacy is enhanced by the friendship vibe. When you know that the person I'm with is my friend. So when we work on that, when we work on friendship, treat it the way you treat your friendship, like your friendship with your girlfriend. Just treat it
Mm.
exactly like that. You wake up in the morning, you just give him a call. What are you doing today? Doing this, and you're there, and when they're carrying something heavy, and it's too heavy. Oh, can I lift that for you? And everything. Friendship is very natural to human beings, but they don't know how to carry it into their relationship. Friendship is crucial for sexual intimacy. Friendship, it's all about friendship. It's all about, and when you are friends, how many times have your friends introduced you to something new? Many times. Your friends introduced you to good music. You know, your friend introduced you to good movies. Let's go watch this movie. I've heard so much about it, and you know what? You just go. But do you know that when people are married, so I saw this nice movie. You want to check it out? Nah, I'm not going to check any movie out. You don't want to be in each other's world, and that is the foundation of sexual intimacy. Being friends, comfortability is very, very important. So, when it comes to also sexual intimacy, by the way, this is one of the major causes of fights in a relationship. sexual intimacy, we talk about frequency. Generally, we're being very general here.
Mm-hmm.
Women would want less sex than men want. Men are very sexual creatures, but that stuff can be manipulated to sound bad, but it is in a marriage setting, it is enjoyable. So men are by nature more sexual than women. And the first phase of marriage, everything is hot. So men tend to face a frustration when a woman goes back to her default, which is, I'm not very sexual. Remember that a woman has to be pursued. And what we are saying now may sound very, let's say, anti new society, like the new societies and communities we live in are trying to push, this thing that, men and women are the same and everything, but they're actually not.
Mm.
Women are pursued, you know, and and it starts in the morning, someone working their wife's mindset to prepare for that. And also, on the other hand, there are problems because sometimes women use sex as manipulation. It is used. They weaponize sex. You know, you didn't treat me well, so I'm not going to. You get what I'm saying?
Mm.
So those are things to discuss in a marriage, and sometimes people push limits sexually. That's where some problems come from because someone wants to do what they've seen in a movie, and the other person feels like there's a degree of weirdness there, and such conversations are really, 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 really important. And this is the reaction we get from this is a very shy reaction. Nobody wants to go deep into it. Everybody feels like sex is going to flow. And I have good news and I have bad news. I'll start with the bad news. It's not going to flow. It is, and you are exploring each other and finding what works. And then the good news is when you have a friendship and you do not have pressure, you can find a vibe. You can find your place sexually. It is the pressure that kills. And I'm going to say something really, 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 really drastic here, but I need you to hear me out. You've probably come across like interviews or people just talking on social media, and then they go like, the sex wasn't really good, it was bad. You heard those conversations, right?
Right.
People
Mm-hmm.
saying that sex is terrible and everything. But here's what I weigh in and say. Sometimes we are under pressure from people who have no morality. They have experienced different kinds of things. Sometimes they had sex while they were intoxicated. Sometimes it was all in their head. Sometimes they were cheating, and that thrill got combined with the sex, and so they invented the idea that what, sex can be good and sex can be bad. Some people are good at it, and some people are bad at it. Then they announced that as a standard of life. But how did you know that some people are good and some people are bad? Because you had a very long immoral season. So when newlyweds come together, they've been maybe with some people before, or maybe they haven't, but their level of immorality, if there is any, is nowhere near what these people did. So when the newlyweds get in their mind, they're thinking, is this good or is this bad? Am I doing well? Am I not doing well? Because they have been brainwashed by people's immorality. Otherwise, what really happens is if people really choose to say we are going to explore each other, they will definitely find their enjoyment. But because of pressure, someone wants to define it. Is it good or is it bad? Well, I'll tell you that in reality, it's bad until it becomes good. That's the reality. So I say to people, heal so that you don't mistake stability for boredom.
Wow.
And a lot of people mistake stability for boredom. So they mistake growth for failure. So people grow sexually. And when they grow, they will find their rhythm. Don't buy the idea that there are some who are good at it, there are some who are bad at it. He's bad or she's bad. That was created by people who tasted more than they should have. So that's what we can say.
Wow, there was so much there. So much stuff. Yeah. And I think it was just incredible for me how you said, people talk about sexual intimacy. And I knew, even though I've never been through premarital counseling, that that's something that would definitely have to be brought up, right? Because even sometimes when you hear about why people got a divorce or separated, sometimes this is actually like a cause for why they separated due to differences. But I think what was incredible about what you said was the friendship aspect was like, wow, and talking about intimacy from at the end of the day, it's not just about you being with this person sexually in the marriage. It's also about you actually treating each other well. Are you nice to each other? Do you like each other? Right. And I hear people talking about how you can love someone and not like them. And I think when you talked about friendship, it was like there's the love aspect, but there's also just liking your partner. And when you then talked about, when you are fighting with your friends, there are certain things that you know not to say, and you wouldn't say them out of respect for your friends. And so you want to carry the same thing in marriage where you're also still respectful and you don't.
Fighters.
Right, exactly. That is just so incredible.
And we can go deep on that. So you see, friendship anticipates the needs of a person without consciously doing it. So I'll tell you about this evening. Um, my wife, so we went to the gas station, and then we parked there, and I got into that little shop. I was specifically looking for a certain drink that I like, and when I was in there, I just figured out, she's had a long day, and she loves, she loves this kind of popcorn. There's certain kind of popcorn she likes, and I bumped into it, and without thinking, I know that friendship code 101. She probably doesn't know I'm going to buy it for her, but I know she likes it, so let me just throw it in the bag. And I threw
Oh,
it in the bag, and when we get there, I'm like, "Oh, I got your popcorn. Oh, thank you." And we get home. She knows that I'm actually struggling. Tomorrow's a big day, and I've got a presentation somewhere, and I'm having a wardrobe malfunction. I can't pick out what to wear. And she just goes and says, "But you know what? The last time you wore this, it really looked good." And I actually argue and say, "Yeah, but it makes me feel so uncomfortable." And then she says, but you look so good when you wear it. And we're just talking. And you know what? That's just friendship. You don't have to make an effort. And I know there's this teaching that, you have to make an effort to be somebody's friend. Well, there is work involved, but it's not an effort. If you have to make an effort, um, something there is not natural. Friendship is natural, and we've all had friends like that, where somebody says, "Oh, I forgot this." Oh, I know you. I knew you were gonna forget this, so I carried it. You know that kind of thing. That actually is what fixes your sexual life. Where when the sexual intimacy comes and it has a friendship foundation, you will see that it becomes so beautiful because the friendship is then continuing between the sheets. You are serving each other just like that. And friendship is, hey, wake up, you're late for work. You know, oh my God, we're late for work. What do we do? That kind of thing. That's friendship. It's I want the best for you. And then friendship is also, I don't like what you did at that time. And the person explains, oh, you know what? The reason why I did that is because, and the person explains why. And then your response is, yeah, but I think you could have done it better here. And it's like, you think so? Yeah, I guess you're right. Could have done it better. So I don't expect ill will from the friendship or the marriage. There's no ill will. There's no ill intent. And the beauty of it is I can fight with you and still know you love me. It's okay for me. It's a safe space for me to fight with you and still know that you're going to make my tea and bring it and still be mad. And that's what impacts sexual intimacy.
Wow.
Remember, we are friends. We are friends. But what God did is he added a physical connection like none other to cement our companionship. But in reality, outside bathing together and candlelit dinners and outside the honeymoon, we are really homies, bro.
Oh, I love that. You said we're really homies, bro. I love that, Pastor Keith. I love it. And
Right.
actually, as you were talking about this, I know we're talking about premarital counseling, but I'm sure there's some people who are listening who might not even be at that stage. Maybe, they're dating, or maybe they're not dating at this point, right? I think just even talking about friendship in itself, when you are, getting to know someone and the importance of having that solid foundation, right? Because, a lot of people talk about how when you rush into the physical stuff with someone, you're going to miss out on actually getting to know who the person is. And now your judgment is just clouded. And so, yeah, I guess based on everything that you said, instead of even waiting to get to premarital counseling to then talk about the friendship aspects, it's important also maybe while people are dating to look out for people who they genuinely have good friendships with as well.
Right.
Oh, I
Have
love that.
genuine friendships. I introduced my wife to my kind of movies. I introduced her to Inception, my favorite movie of all time. I got her to watch Interstellar, my second favorite movie. I got her to watch The Matrix. I've been this sci-fi kind of person, and that's not her vibe. Her vibe is very romantic comedy, and right now she's in this Korean series, and I thought that was like, no, I would never watch that, but she's my friend. What really? So that's just me. She said, "Do you want to watch this?" I said, yeah, no, it's not my thing. It just feels so too emotional for me. And but this is really good. I was like, oh, okay. Then one day I just came and said, what really fascinates about you about this? That's just me speaking in code for I want to watch something with you. And then she says, oh, let me give you the background. So this is the prince. He's having problems. And then I sat down and then I watched and I said, okay, this is me saying I really enjoyed it. I said, your stuff is not so bad. Not so bad. I get it.
No.
And then, so we bring each other into our world. And you don't have to have 100% enjoyment. You just have to be there to understand how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes my wife is super tired when she gets, to work from work. She's super tired, and I'm there, and we've got a little baby, and the little baby wants mom to put him to sleep. But I know that today's not the day. So just take the little baby, say, just sleep for a bit. Because friendships don't think that someone is taking advantage of you. But romantic relationships, dating and marriage, there's always that guard up, like, oh, well, yesterday I'm the one who put the baby to sleep, and today you're letting me you're keeping count. But when you grew up and you had friends, you didn't keep count of who introduced you to what or who spent more time doing this. We just knew that we're friends and we're in it, you know. So in a relationship, I know that we're married people and we're in it. So you're going to take advantage for a season because you're tired. So I'll let you take the advantage because you need it. And you have to trust my heart and I have to trust your heart to know that you don't like doing it, but it must be done because you get what I'm saying? I love I think the best way to put it, I got this one from Michelle Obama. She captured it just right. People asked her about her marriage and said, "Your marriage is so awesome." And then she said, "Nah, it's awesome now because we're really enjoying the benefits of our very long time together. But there were times I was mad at my husband all the time because I felt like it wasn't fair. It was just me. I'm also at school like you are at school, but I have to take care of the kids. But you have got a budding political career. You're running around to do this, and it feels unfair. But then also the tables turn. And there was also a period where it was unfair for him. He was pushing more than her. So marriage has got seasons. And when my wife did not have a job, it was all my salary doing everything. Because those who have the ability have the responsibility. That's the key in marriage. If you have the ability, then it's your responsibility.
Mm.
And then what happens is that you have to trust that over time, abilities can change. So there were things that I exclusively could do better that my wife could not do. And then later it changes. I'm now able to do those things better. And my wife is unable because of her schedule. So that friendship makes you know who can do what when. So it flows. And I don't know if this is still intimacy we're talking about or just friendship, but it's how it works. So the challenge that newlyweds face is they want to say, okay, you do this so that I do that, or you do this so that I do that, and it's not fair. This is what I did yesterday, and that kind of thing. When you realize that your person's heart is in it, conversations like that don't last long. I know you're with me. And the wife also says, I know you're with me. So when they began, Barack and Michelle kind of put in more work because Barack was still establishing contacts in the political world. Sometimes he needs to have dinner with an important person, but the kids need homework. They need help with homework. So Michelle, you do it because today I've got a very important meeting. There's a part. So when that happens, eventually, when you become president, it's enjoyment time. And both of you have got different seasons where you make bigger sacrifices than the other. And that's actually okay.
Mm. Wow. Oh, that's beautiful. This is just incredible. Just seeing how friendship is so important to have like a healthy and happy marriage. So thank you so much for sharing that and just emphasizing on the importance of friendship in the whole, topic of sexual intimacy. That was really, really good.
Yeah.
So, how about the sixth one? And I'm pretty sure you're going to say it's a hot topic.
Oh, this one's a hard topic. This one's a hard topic. So, discussing faith and religion. That's number 6. Faith and religion, they are often very important like aspects in a person's life. They provide comfort and guidance, like how a person processes what happens to them in difficult times. They are a source of strength, a source of support. And for many people, faith and religion are so crucial to marriage. So in premarital counseling, it is very vital to discuss topics like this with your partner, to actually say, okay, what do you believe in? Because this is the thing that creates the most resentment. So people should talk about this, but the resentment of faith and religion is usually based on the future. So there should be a discussion of how kids are going to be raised and what they believe in, or that unequally yoked subject. And not everyone shares the same religious beliefs. And this can be a source of conflict. So, faith and religion. Faith is so important that that's how you cope with grief. That's how you process things that happen. Someone can say, God blessed me with a job. And another can say, nah, you actually worked hard and God actually came through. This is what I was telling you. You should work more hard. You should work harder. And the person says, no, 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 you don't understand. It's because I sowed a seed at church. And this is how the miracle happened. And there can be conflict there. So, what are religious beliefs? By nature, I do not recommend people of different religious beliefs getting married. I never say it, but I try to make people see that this one's a hard. From anything else, you can recover. Issues with in-laws, you can recover. Different financial styles, you can recover. But religion is so hot that the Middle East is at war for thousands of years. Religions are a hot topic. Belief systems are a hot topic. And I've never seen people with different belief systems actually working out unless one of them is lukewarm in what they believe in. But if two people are solid strong in what they believe in, and yet it's different, usually it doesn't work out. And I'm not talking denomination here. Like, I'm a Methodist and this one's a Lutheran, let's get married. Or I'm a Baptist and I'm Holiness Pentecostal. We can work out. Our doctrines are almost the same. Nah, or someone saying, I know I'm Muslim, or I'm Baha'i faith. So sometimes it works out if these are just things by birth, like my family is Muslim, or my family is Buddhist, and you don't really subscribe to those beliefs. But in church matters, my wife came from a very strong Pentecostal church. I was pastoring a very strong Pentecostal church. Our creeds were the same. But when we got married, we found out they were really different. Even going to the same church can have very different outlooks in life. Faith and religion are very important. What would you do if your partner just wakes up and says, I'm sensing that God is calling us into ministry, and the other person's waking up and saying, God speaks, you know, that kind of thing. Very important. And I've 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 seen all of this. I've counseled a couple that had challenges because the wife was always posting the pastor and never posting the husband, you know. And the husband got so angry, like, why do you post the pastor more than you post me? And here's the wife's defense. We are to preach the gospel. And I'm using my WhatsApp status, my reels, my story to let the world know about God because we are to do that. And the husband says, it feels like you are crushing on the pastor, and that's a source of conflict because it's a lot of things. How deep are you into your faith? So such issues, we need to talk about them. How often do you read the Bible? May sound like a very simple thing. For one person, they don't really have, the time to read. The other person has got a Bible, the Message version, the Passion Translation, the New King James Version, and the Concordance on top of that. And people have to accept those differences. Faith is important because it's the filter you use to process the world. If somebody tells you that, I think the world is ending, I think Jesus is about to come, and the other feels like, we really should start saving money for a house, there's a conflict. There's a
Right.
conflict.
Yeah, because one
Definitely
is
a conflict.
assuming the world is ending and one is assuming this, is going to continue on for way, way longer. That is, you brought up a really, really good point about how, you know, if people are strongly rooted in whatever faith they're rooted in, and this could be different religions, right? For example,
Yeah.
so one is a strong Muslim, one is a strong Christian. That would result inevitably, right? It's like it will result in a lot of conflicts. However, like to your point, what you said, if one of them is lukewarm, so let's say maybe the Christian is like, no, they're lukewarm. They're like, well, I was born into a Christian family, but I don't really practice. I don't really like. I'm open to all religions. Then that's a different story. And I mean, I'm like, wow, yeah, that is so profound because yes, if you strongly believe in something and someone else strongly believes in something that says like a whole opposite story, it's just going to be hard to move through life, right? Because to your point, religion and faith is that thing that people can see their lives, the lens through which people can look at their lives. So to your point, even processing tough times, like if it's a matter of someone has lost their job, someone can really be like, I'm really believing that God is going to do this for me. And if there was someone who's an atheist, that's a completely different view of life altogether.
Or somebody says, you lost your job because God is judging America. God is judging you for all the things you did. And somebody's saying, I lost my job and I'm believing God for another one, because when one door closes, another opens.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You were right. Number 6 was a hot topic. It was a hot topic. And I appreciate you even bringing up, I think, even within Christianity itself, too, right? Like, some of the churches can be so different. Like if you if you go to like the Pentecostal churches or some of the other churches where there's like a lot of
Yeah.
dancing
Yeah.
in church, the praise and worship, they're singing, things from Maverick City, Elevation Worship, and then your partner goes to maybe a Catholic church and they sing hymns. There's no dance, there's no craziness, right? That could even be another thing of, hey, if we were to get married, how are we going to proceed through life? Because someone goes to Catholic mass and they like the way that mass is held, and someone else is like, you know what, I like more of like the jumping and the dancing and all of that stuff. So wow, a really, really hot topic for sure.
I'll have to throw in one more for number 6. There's a couple that I know that divorced. Well, they had another reason for divorcing, but one of the issues that the wife raised up was, this man, he just works hard and earns very little. He doesn't believe in sowing and reaping. Like when you sow to the kingdom, you will reap. Whatever you give, God gives back. And the wife said she practices it and it works, but he doesn't listen. Now, that's not the real cause why they divorced. Something bigger happened. But that added to her frustration. And they were actually members of the same church. So you don't tithe, you don't give, you're not generous to the church. You don't know how financial principles work. You don't like watching those free to air channels, and we're going nowhere. So I don't really think this relationship is working. So yeah, that's something. But let's jump to number 7. Conflict resolution. I know we touched on this a little bit, but conflict resolution. Conflict resolution is just how you deal or how you process, when things in a conflict, how you deal with everything. So in premarital counseling, we teach that conflict is a normal part of any relationship, and it is inevitable that you will experience disagreements with your partner. However, it's really important to learn how to resolve these conflicts in a healthy way, because a lot of people resolve conflicts in an unhealthy way. So, in order to resolve conflicts effectively, you and your partner will need to understand the root cause of the conflict. Oh, there's a session we call root systems, where we dissect a conflict and where it really comes from. You'd be shocked at the things you find there. So you need to communicate well with each other during a conflict, and you should be able to express your feelings, your needs calmly and clearly. And you should be willing to listen to your partner's point of view. Now, if you notice, I didn't call this a hot one, because this one is not a hot one, it's a hard one. Of everything we taught and everything we teach, this one is the one which everybody agrees with, that yeah, we should learn conflict resolution. But it's the one that is hardest. for everyone. I'll tell you one, Michelle. Here's this. People are toxic in some way or the other. Everyone. It's some way or the other. Because you grew up, you faced different conflicts, and you handled them in a certain way. So you're going to take that coping mechanism and bring it into your marriage. And it just doesn't work. So there are people who are into silent treatment. You do something that I don't like, I go quiet on you. And I'll snitch on my marriage again and say that was me. I dealt with things in a very silent treatment way. If I didn't agree with what was being said or what was being done, I'll just withdraw, because I would withdraw into my pain. And I thought that was normal. I thought that what everybody did. But I found out that no. Then there are people who get into manipulation. And a lot of women fall into this trap because it becomes the sex trap. You make me angry, therefore you're not getting any for 2 weeks.
2
know.
weeks. The
And
period that you picked is the funniest part.
2 whole weeks. So that's conflict resolution, I guess, is when we should have talked more about the friendship thing. Because conflicts will happen, but can you stay cool? People lose their tempers. And when they lose their tempers, they say the wrong thing, and they attack their partner's person, like their whole personality. You do this, you do that, you are like this, you are like this. And that inability to deal with the difference is what people end up saying, this is irreconcilable differences, which doesn't exist, by the way. There's no such thing called irreconcilable differences. It's just differences that you're too proud to deal with.
Wow.
Because marriage is savage on pride. Marriage teaches you one thing: humility. Marriage humbles you. The thing you thought in your life, you don't do this or you don't do that, marriage will teach you that you will. So pride and marriage, they don't go hand in hand at all. So when people say our differences, we have set down, now people, write cute messages and say, I just want to say that, my wife has been the best friend that I've ever had in life. We've shared so many moments, but we've decided to grow in our different areas because we found out that we have irreconcilable differences, but they will always be a best friend to me. And I'm just reading that and say, how can somebody be a best friend when you have irreconcilable differences? That's just a cute social media post. But in reality, people have failed to become friends because they chose to. They chose. So, conflict resolution. The first thing you should know is the things that are different about you will be many. Sometimes you may find out that you agree with the results, like this is where we want to go, but you disagree usually on how to get there. So basically, people want the same thing, but they don't know how we're going to get there. So most conflicts are going to be about how to get to a place. So when somebody says, oh, we are so compatible, And then later in the marriage, they say, we've got so many differences, we have irreconcilable differences. What just happened is that they stopped looking at the outcome they wanted and started fighting more about how to get there. And normally, how to get there, no one is absolutely wrong and no one is absolutely right. You have to work out your how to get there. That's where conflict is. How do we get from point A to point B? Because everybody wants a home. Everybody wants a happy home. Everyone wants to be financially free. Everyone wants to have children that are happy, that are successful. But what is the road that we need? Should we save money or should we invest? So somebody says, no, 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 no. Saving money is so old. Nobody saves money anymore because money is depreciating. This is not the 1970s. We should invest this money. And somebody says, no, investing is gambling. We can't gamble with money that is so. But what you're just saying is we want to be financially free, but we don't agree. So conflict resolution is always about listening to your partner's heart. And when you listen to your partner's heart, they will say things you don't agree with, but it keeps you with the knowledge that you're on the same side. And it really helps. I'll ask you something. Have you ever taken a walk with a friend and you are walking down a road that you usually walk alone a lot? Have you noticed that you bump into each other? Like this person feels like if we're going there, we should go this way. And then you'd say, no, let's go this way to get there. So sometimes you're talking and then you just bump into each other because this one is expecting you to turn like this.
Right.
And you have you ever experienced that?
Yes.
And do you know what? Do you know that you have deep psychological reasons why you'd walk a certain way? I didn't know that about me. I've seen that my wife likes, if we're walking in the street, she chooses the roads that have more visuals, like something beautiful to see. And I choose less crowded areas. Like if we're going, I can say, let's cross the road now. And then she says, but why are we crossing the road? And then I say, yeah, we're crossing the road because, and then I don't actually know why it's natural for me to cross the road. And then it hits me later that I don't like crowds. I didn't know that about me, that I don't like crowds. Then let's go deep and say, why don't I like crowds? Then I realized, oh, it's because when I was young, somebody stole my wallet. So it's a defense mechanism that I built. I avoid crowds. And this is happening on such a subconscious level that I do not realize that's what's actually going on. So if you know your partner's heart, you are able to resolve conflicts and to stay together. It's when you start questioning your partner's motives and you start questioning whether they are really for you or against you that problems begin to arise.
Wow.
And poison begins to build in your heart. We are very subconscious people. And I'll tell you an amazing story that I read. So there was this person who, when they got married, the wife always wanted to buy a particular brand. Let's think, I'm forgetting the name of the brand, but maybe something like Philips or Sony or Samsung, everything they owned. She always wanted it to be, let's say, let's work with Samsung. She wanted a Samsung fridge, a Samsung microwave, you know, Samsung phones, everything, TV, Samsung. And that's okay. But the husband felt that this brand it has got issues. It's expensive. But why does my wife feel like it should always be this brand? So when the time came for him to buy, let's say, a toaster, he bought a different brand. And his wife was upset, like really upset. And then she started crying. Like, okay, wait, you're crying because I bought a toaster from a different company, a different brand. And then she was angry at him. So years later, some of the equipment began to be faulty. And she didn't want to dispose of it. Now that sounds weird until they went for therapy sessions. And the wife could not explain why she was so emotional about it. And he could not understand why it triggered so much emotion until they found out that the wife's dad, who had passed on, he worked for Samsung for a long time. And he would bring those products home and he would pay. Those were the happiest times of her life. And she was so close to her dad, and the dad died. So she began to link the brand with her dad.
Mm.
And then the husband could not understand why it was so triggering for her. She herself did not know that. So whenever she bought a different product, she felt like she was betraying her dad. So these are things that happen in marriage where there are deep psychological issues that need to be explored. But sometimes you don't have the therapist to do that. You just have to trust that your partner is doing things from the right place. And you may not agree with it, but friendship over making a statement. So the question is, do you want to have a good relationship or do you want to be right?
Wow.
So people can just choose to be right. People want to be right. But okay, the relationship is damaged, but I was right. And that's the pride that harms relationships.
Wow. There's so much to unpack. So much to unpack on what you said, right? Because, you're talking about how when you're in an argument or a disagreement with someone, if you're not going to listen and you're just speaking, you're going to be talking over each other and no one is really getting to that root cause of all the problems, right? And I like what you said about trying to be calm in the situations and to listen, to hear what someone is saying, and to also try and get to the root cause of the problems that you're facing. So, like, maybe the disagreement you're having is just more showing you symptoms of something that's even bigger than that, right? So, like, it's kind of like different situations will show that there is a problem, but if you never get to what the cause of the problem is, you're just blindly fighting each other.
Yeah.
Whereas if you listen and you kind of, to your point, some people go through therapy together And in therapy, some things could come out like, hey, actually, the reason why you get triggered when such and such a thing happens is because of A, B, C, D. And so now there's more of an understanding. I really, really like what you said there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I still have like a lot to say there, but we'll have to leave that point at that.
Mm,
But learning to fight fair, because the person you're living with is not your enemy. It may sound like the simplest preschooler advice or realization, but I'll tell you, a lot of people that are married need to be reminded that they are not living with an enemy, because that mindset is so easy to plant in marriage.
yeah. And I think it's one of those things too, where once you feel like someone is operating from a bad heart, right? Or their motives towards you are just not pure, then anything that they do, you would see it through those lenses. So it's
Let's,
more of
yeah,
like, oh, it's confirmation bias, right? Because if I already feel that you're out to get me, no matter what you say to me, you could be right in what you're saying. I'll just still feel like, oh, this
yeah,
is just
there's
yet
some,
another example that points to how you're against me and you're not for me. So I really, really like that. Wow, so much stuff. I feel like I'm learning a lot. I've been taking notes throughout. So thank you, Pastor Keith. How about number 8? Hit us with the big one.
the last one, and let me say, it's a big one. Um, the last one is personal growth goals. Personal growth goals. And with this one, in premarital counseling, that is, you and your partner will discuss like a variety of topics, like we just talked about. But one of them, personal growth. This is an important topic because it can help you identify like areas in which you may need to work on your relationship. When it comes to personal growth goals, you should be clear and honest with your partner. You should be willing to share your dreams, your aspirations, as well as your fears and doubts. It is also important to be open, communicative about your feelings. And if you're feeling unhappy or unsatisfied with your life, you should tell your partner. You should create that safe space that allows each of you to lean in and be vulnerable and share what's on your mind so that both of you can grow, both individually and maybe, and of course, collectively as a couple. It's also important to be supportive in each other's personal growth goals. You should encourage each other to pursue dreams, and you should be there to offer support and encouragement. I can't emphasize that enough, because personal growth is tricky. Sometimes when people get married, they hope that their partner will grow out of a phase, you know. So they believe that, oh, they really want this in their life. It's a phase. I'm going to deal with it. I know it's going to fall off somewhere. And then it gets problematic because the partner keeps pushing in a particular area. And it causes problems because the other partner thought they were going to grow out of that desire. Kind of like the example that we shared, Barack and Michelle Obama. When they met, he said he would hope to be in a position of political leadership in the country one day. They knew where they were going. And you don't necessarily have to like what your partner desires to be, but you have to be supportive. You have to say, how can I help you reach your goal? And I want to be honest here. This is an area where I've seen my wife really help me. Like, I know that when we got our church building, my wife took from her savings and
Wow.
said this, because she knew that I was looking for a building and it was stressing me and we needed a place so much, and we got an opening, but we needed money right there and then. And she gave permission to take from savings and said, let's do it. And she used some of her personal money to buy vases in the church and to do that. And she's not even, God didn't call her to ministry. I'll say that initially. Ministry is something that she got called into God by walking with me, and God began to reveal himself to her for her purpose. But when we got married, she was just marrying Keith.
Wow.
And she's been there, she's been supportive. And also for her job, I've made sure that I've been supportive too. When sometimes her job requires her to be at work at 5 a.m., like in the morning, and I know that I have to wake up in the morning and drive her. And when she's really started, she needs something done, a little errand that would help her with the job, I can certainly do that because I'm helping her grow. And we can talk about a lot of things, education, you know. The idea is, yes, I have my own life with my own goals, and you have your own life with your own goals. But can we come together and help each other feel fulfilled? How can I be a companion to you and help you with everything? Personal development goals are important, and they include everything. They could they include financials. They even include body goals, like how do I want to look like? Am I gaining too much weight? Because somebody can say, you go to the gym too much, you know, and somebody can say, you know what, you're gaining so much weight. All goals, all goals. And somebody can say, I want to achieve this by 30. And the other can say, but there's no hurry. Why does it have to be like 30? All those things are vitally important. Personal development. And I've had an issue where I had to sit down with a couple, and it was the husband in this case. He worked hard, you know. When they got married, they were on the same level, but he began to grow in his career. He pursued his education. He traveled a lot. And when he came back to his wife, he was exposed and he felt like she was shallow, you know. And because of that constant exposure, he didn't quite love her anymore.
Oh, wow.
And you know, he has these meetings with these powerful people, and he brings her over. And the other wives, you know, they're sharp, they understand everything. And he has these meetings, and she can't say anything, she can't conversate. Now, who do we blame here? Well, we blame nobody, because marriage is not a platform to put pressure on another person to grow to your level. But marriage and love and friendship should teach you to be in touch at least with your partner's world. Now, divorcing your wife because you are now exposed, well, we know that's wrong. But we also need to look at both sides to say, when you stepped into the marriage, you knew that your husband wanted to grow in this direction. Shouldn't you have at least tried to gain a little bit from that? So those are vitally important. And if not explored correctly, partners outgrow each other. And that's a very dangerous thing. When partners outgrow each other, it is dangerous. So stay interested in your partner's goals. Just be interested. You don't have to be a professor, but you just need to know how it sort of works. And then it helps because marriage essentially is growing together.
Mm.
So personal development is important. I have friends of mine, and this one was a really hard one. I have friends of mine, when they got married, the wife used to say, one day I want to live in a first world country. And the husband was a pastor. And, they were okay for 17, 18 years. But when financials hit hard, what happened is the wife started saying, but we should have left this country a long time ago. And the husband said, but I have a church that I pastor here. I can't leave. And so what they decided to do was the wife went to live in the United Kingdom. The husband stayed in Zimbabwe. What I love about them is they didn't divorce. They didn't split. But what they did is they tried to work out a long distance marriage. I don't know how the dynamics of how that works, but it seems to be working for them. And the wife visits home every 6 months or so. And they're okay with all this, with all these platforms where people can talk, and they can have Zoom meetings, or they can talk on WhatsApp calls or Messenger. They've sort of built a marriage that has managed to survive that. But that growth, she announced it when she stepped into the marriage. And at times in marriage, we just put it under the carpet and hope it goes away. But this is somebody's life. You can't hope that what they want will go away. So these are conversations that must be had, conversations that must be really discussed, so that we know what we want to grow into. If somebody says they want to, like to be in business on this particular level, it may require even years of sacrifice that your spouse must understand, must catch the vision. And when the spouse catches the vision, they'll understand the sacrifice. If you don't catch the vision, the sacrifice will look like a waste to you. So, very vitally important for couples to grow together.
Wow. This was a big one. You're right. And I think it's very interesting in that, like, I think number 1 to 7 were mostly focused on the unit, right? Like, you as a couple, okay, your family, like your finances, your intimacy, conflict resolution. And I didn't see number 8 coming, I must say, because I feel like, when I hear people talk about marriage, it almost feels like once people get married, a part of like the individual life just seems to not be spoken about, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
now more
yeah.
of like, oh, talking about like the couple and like, oh, we're doing this and we're doing that, but not necessarily talking about the goals and the personal goals that people have. And so this was really incredible to just hear you say that, at the end of the day, it is still two individuals who had their own dreams and, visions and what they wanted to achieve in life and their own goals, and the importance of being able to come together and recognizing the fact that your partner has their goals and seeing how you can support them through that as well. So wow, that was incredible. I must say I didn't see this one coming.
That's awesome. It's beautiful to grow together, but also remember that you have, as an individual, a life. Somebody gave us advice when we got married. I remember she said, "You two people are inseparable." But let me tell you that marriage is not, completing each other. And that shocked me because I knew that, yeah, that's what I thought. Did you complete me, the poetry, the songs, I'm incomplete without you. But marriage is not people completing each other. Marriage is two complete people coming together to build something bigger. You are complete before you're married. And that is awesome.
Wow. Yeah. I must say, like the pastor at my church, he'll say this, right? He'll be like, oh, and for the single people, like you're a complete person as you are. And I mean, sometimes I completely get that. And even with what you explained, that like, yeah, you're a complete person. It's just that I feel like sometimes in church when it's said, it might just feel like, oh, maybe this is just being said because, they don't want the single people to feel like they're incomplete as a person. So almost like, oh, this phrase is just being said to, make the single people feel good, right? Like, guys, at the end of the day, you're a complete person. But to your point, even when God was creating people, he was creating individuals, right? So I think what you're saying about, yeah, it's not like you were two halves that then were brought together, but you were wholly, individuals on your own. And it's now two whole complete people coming together to just build something bigger together. Wow, that was deep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the joy of marriage. It is beautiful. Also remember that when you are growing in individual spaces, the other person may be bored by your sacrifice because they are not wired to be passionate about it. But this is where marriage teaches humility. An area where you had no passion at all, you learn to respect it and to honor it because it's important to your spouse. I don't think you can summarize marriage better.
Wow. Oh, this was so, so good. Honestly, thank you so, so much, Pastor Keith, for just coming on here and really going. I know it was like, a high level description of what goes on in premarital counseling, but I have 5 pages of notes that I've taken down from everything that you were saying. And I personally feel like I was in a pre counseling session myself. So thank you so, so much for just coming on here and for shedding light on such an important thing, of as people are thinking of taking the next step into marriage, really thinking about going through premarital counseling because there's a lot that will be brought out in conversation that you probably wouldn't have come up with when you're just speaking on your own. And just circling back to what you said in the beginning, too, right? That this is something that you're doing in preparation for the future. So just thinking of it as like therapy in preparation for the future just is also a game changer. So thank you so, so much for coming here and just really pouring out everything and sharing with us everything that you know about this.
Yeah, and my closing shot,
Hmm.
something important to remember is this. Have you ever seen a shooting star? It it just comes from nowhere in the sky, and it takes all your attention, and just as quick, it's gone. And there's no sign that it was there. The challenges we face in marriage are like shooting stars. They hit us sometimes when we're not expecting. They take all our attention, but they fade away. And when people look for direction in life, it's never the shooting stars they use. It's the constant stars, the stars we see every day. That's what you use for direction. And in marriage, it is friendship that is a constant star. And anything else, whether good or bad, is just shooting star taking your attention. The death of a sibling is a shooting star in your marriage. You can't use it as direction. The promotion you get at work and the increase in your finances is just a shooting star, but that's not what your marriage is about. Your marriage is about the constant star called friendship. And the sexual side, the romance, the everything, it's a shooting star, beautiful in the sky, fades. But friendship is the constant star that never fades. When you are old, when you are gray, the one thing that will be left is the constant star, friendship. That's the foundation on which marriage is built. Everything else is a fleeting shooting star, taking our attention for a few minutes. But we need to keep focused on where the right direction is by looking at the constant stars.
Wow. Wow, that was just so incredible. Thank you. And I won't even add anything else on top of what Pastor Keith said, because I think that was just so profound. And Pastor Keith, I know you mentioned that, you're an author. Are there platforms where people can find you if they want to follow you, or if they have any questions they want to ask?
All right, I'm on Instagram. It's I am Keith Mawoyo. And I'm on Facebook as Keith Mawoyo. I'm on Twitter, Keith Mawoyo.
Perfect. And I will also make sure that I add his handles to the description box so that anyone who wants to find him can go on there. And if you have any questions about, premarital counseling, hopefully you can go and ask Pastor Keith. Pastor Keith, I'm volunteering you for people's questions if they have something to ask.
That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And to everyone who is listening, I hope this is helpful for you. And I wish you all the very best, whether you are engaged and you're going to be going for premarital counseling, or if you're about to get married soon, or if you're dating and, at some point you might want to go through premarital counseling, or if you're single right now and you were just curious about this, wishing you the very best. Thank you all so much for listening. Make sure that you rate the podcast, guys. Leave stars on the podcast. I will catch you all in the next episode. Peace. Ndiwe wandiroya moyo wangu.